Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer Crosswhite. Last week I introduced you to the idea that you will have the best success as a writer if you know what makes you tick and how you work best. Today I'm going to talk about the prep work that will make your writing time far more effective. Will help you create your own toolbox of skills so you can create your own system for writing success. Jon Acuff wrote a great book called Soundtracks. I highly recommend it. It's what he calls those tapes that play over and over in your head. The basis of everything we do comes from our thoughts. In fact, he says, your brain can be a real jerk. And this is so true. We are so often our own worst enemies. Jon defines overthinking as when what you think gets in the way of what you want. Have you experienced that before? I certainly have. I have a great capacity to overthink things. And it's a really interesting idea that our thoughts can actually get in our own way. It's kind of a new idea. When I first heard him talking about that, I thought about that for a minute and thought, man, I really can examine my thoughts and perhaps change them to reflect what I really want to accomplish. First, our brain likes to believe the things that it already believes. It doesn't want to change its mind very easily. And so as we're going through some of those misbeliefs and some of that negative self-talk that we talked about last week, part of the problem with those things and why they're so hard to overcome is that we have a knee-jerk reaction to them, to just believing them automatically. We don't even really take the time to examine them. And so unlearning those things is very hard. It's much, much harder to do that and to replace them with new, more positive thoughts, because those things really do feel like the truth to our brain because we've been saying them to ourselves for so long. We also prime ourselves for action by our thoughts. The official term is the ideomotor effect. And it's the idea that our thoughts influence our actions, but also our actions influence our thoughts. And this can be either a vicious circle or a virtuous circle, depending on how you're able to control it. Jon Acuff says one of the biggest mistakes you can make is to assume that all your thoughts are true. Isn't that interesting? We usually don't like to think about what we're thinking about, but examining that can be really, really helpful. Becca Syme is a coach for writers using the Gallup StrengthsFinder test. She's fantastic. You should definitely look her work up too in the Better Faster Academy. And she says something called question the premise, QTP. You should question the premise whenever you hear a piece of advice. We often think we're failures because what works for someone else doesn't work for us. And so our first thought is to blame ourselves. But actually, she says we should maybe question the premise and blame the advice. It might be for someone who's wired differently than we are. And we have the power to be curious and to figure out what does work for us and to assume that we will figure it out. So as you learn more about yourself, you can add these pieces to your own personalized system of success. Spend some time this week thinking about how you might be your own worst enemy. What thoughts play through your mind? Are they true? How could you challenge them? How could you change them? Notice what you're thinking and how it affects your actions, and vice versa. Finally, question the premise. Did someone give you a piece of advice that doesn't feel right, doesn't fit, or makes you feel bad? Maybe that advice is not meant for you. Maybe it's meant for someone else. Just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean you're a failure. Question the premise and actually look at the advice you're given. Well, I hope you find that helpful, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.